Most men go through their lives believing women are complicated puzzles, emotional labyrinths with no clear exits. They replay conversations in their heads, analyze text messages word by word, and search endlessly for the moment where everything went wrong. Yet the real mystery is not women themselves. The real mystery is why no one ever taught men the truth that actually governs attraction, connection, and withdrawal. Once this truth is understood, a man's entire experience with women changes permanently, not because he learns tricks, but because he finally sees the underlying mechanism that was operating the whole time. Almost every man has lived through the same painful scenario. Things feel strong at first. The conversations flow. The laughter is easy. The connection feels real and mutual. There is warmth in her voice, interest in her questions, a sense that something meaningful is forming. Then, without warning or explanation, she pulls back. Her replies become shorter. Her energy cools. Plans become uncertain. Eventually, she fades or disappears altogether. The man is left staring at his phone, confused, replaying every interaction like a crime scene. Did he say something wrong? Did he joke too much? Did he show too much interest? Did timing ruin it? Was it another guy? This is where most men turn the pain inward. Confidence erodes quietly. They begin to doubt their instincts, their personality, even their worth. Others turn the blame outward, labeling her as cold, damaged, immature, or incapable of commitment. Some blame bad luck, wrong timing, or modern dating culture. All of these explanations feel comforting, but none of them restore power. They leave a man passive, waiting for the next opportunity and hoping that chance will be kinder next time. The harsh truth is that the real reason women pull away is rarely the one men fixate on. It is not usually a specific sentence, a minor mistake, or an external competitor. The reason is deeper, more uncomfortable, and rarely discussed honestly. Most men only learn it through repeated failure and emotional exhaustion. They sense that something invisible is working against them, but they do not know what it is or how to address it. This ignorance keeps them trapped in cycles of effort, confusion, and disappointment. What makes this truth so powerful is that once it is seen clearly, past failures stop feeling random or personal. They become data. They become lessons. Patterns emerge where chaos once lived. The same experiences that once crushed confidence can be reinterpreted as necessary pressure that forges awareness, instead of becoming bitter or guarded. A man can become grounded and precise. In the next part, we will dismantle the biggest lie men were taught about what women respond to, and replace it with a principle that explains attraction at its root. Once you understand this shift, you will never approach women, or yourself, the same way again. One of the most damaging myths men absorb growing up is the belief that attraction is earned by doing everything right. Be respectful, be patient, be agreeable, be emotionally available. Never offend, never pressure, never lead too strongly. Society praises this model and rewards it socially. So men assume it must also work romantically. Yet this is where confusion begins, because what earns approval is not what creates desire. Women do not fall in love with men who simply follow instructions or minimize friction. They respond to men who make them feel something real through presence, emotional gravity, and grounded masculine energy. When a man is genuinely interested in a woman, he often becomes careful instead of confident. He watches his words, edits his thoughts, delays decisions, and avoids disagreement. He fears that a single wrong move will destroy the connection, so he tries to become smooth, harmless, and perfectly calibrated. Ironically, this is exactly what drains attraction, not because he made a mistake, but because his behavior communicates uncertainty. His energy shifts from leading to monitoring, from expressing to seeking approval on a subconscious level. This registers as a lack of internal stability. Women are not biologically wired to respond to comfort alone. Comfort without strength feels empty. Attraction forms when a woman senses that a man can hold emotional tension without collapsing, reacting, or retreating if he cannot lead a conversation, guide an interaction, or remain centered when things feel uncertain. Her subconscious begins to disengage. This is not cruelty or calculation, it is instinct. A man who fears his own desire or avoids tension appears unable to handle pressure, conflict, or responsibility. That perception dissolves attraction faster than any clumsy sentence ever could. Many men believe that being perfect will make a woman feel safe. In reality, perfection creates anxiety. A man who is trying too hard is broadcasting that he is invested beyond his center. She feels that if she pulls away, he will chase, explain, or unravel. This places emotional weight on her, and attraction collapses under that weight. Safety, in its deepest form, comes from calm certainty, not from endless accommodation. A woman relaxes when she senses that a man knows who he is, where he is going, and does not need constant validation to stay grounded. Once this principle is understood, a profound shift occurs. A man stops trying to be chosen and starts choosing how he shows up. He no longer treats attraction as something to earn through effort, but something to generate through authenticity and leadership. He speaks more simply, moves more decisively, and allows moments of silence without panic. Instead of asking himself how to avoid mistakes, he asks whether his presence feels solid and honest. In the next part, we will explore how women unconsciously test this solidity through behaviors that confuse most men, and how passing these tests quietly creates trust, relaxation, and desire without a single dramatic move. Many men are confused by what they perceive as inconsistent or irrational behavior from women. One moment she is warm and engaged, the next she seems distant, moody, or strangely demanding to the untrained eye. These shifts feel unfair or manipulative. In reality, most of these moments are not punishments or games. They are unconscious tests. A woman is not trying to torture a man. She is checking whether he can handle her emotional world without losing himself in it, because her sense of safety depends on that answer. When a woman expresses irritation, changes plans suddenly, goes quiet, or challenges a man in subtle ways, she is observing his internal structure. If he remains calm, grounded, and self-possessed, she relaxes. Her nervous system reads stability. If he becomes frantic, apologetic, defensive, or aggressive, she pulls away, not because she enjoys power, but because chaos meeting chaos creates danger. Her withdrawal is a protective response. The man who can stand steady in the storm becomes the man she can finally stop bracing against. Most men are shocked when they realize how many small signals they ignored that quietly pushed women away. They were taught that women want logic, clarity, and verbal reassurance, so they explain, justify, and problem solve. Yet attraction does not operate on logic. It operates on feeling. Women rarely say what they want directly because they often do not know it in words themselves. They need to feel a man first. His presence, his pacing, his reactions under pressure speak louder than any declaration of intent. This is why excessive effort backfires. A woman's intuition is highly sensitive to falseness. When a man overperforms, adapts his personality, or invests disproportionate energy, it registers as insecurity. In her subconscious, insecurity equals instability. Instability equals danger. Chemistry dies quietly in those moments, often without explanation. She may still like him as a person, but desire fades. What she seeks is not a polished image, but authenticity that does not bend under observation. Women notice micro cracks that men rarely consider important. How he handles silence without rushing to fill it, how he responds when she says no, how he speaks about his past without bitterness or bragging, how he holds eye contact when uncertain, how he behaves when he feels slightly rejected. These moments reveal more than grand gestures ever could. They answer the only question her subconscious is asking: can this man remain himself under pressure? Once a man understands that these tests are invitations rather than traps, everything changes. He stops reacting and starts responding. He allows tension without panic. He stays present without performing. And paradoxically, the less he tries to manage her emotions, the safer she feels with him. In the next part, we will dismantle the most common misconceptions men hold about impressing women, and reveal why trying to win her often guarantees that you lose her. One of the most destructive misconceptions men carry into dating is the belief that they must convince a woman to choose them. This mindset turns connection into a performance. The man becomes an actor on a stage, measuring every move, hoping his effort will be rewarded. Yet attraction is not created through persuasion. A woman does not fall for how well a man performs, but for how grounded he feels, simply existing as himself. The difference between trying to be chosen and knowing your value leaks through everything: tone of voice, posture, pacing, eye contact, and decisions. When a man believes he must impress, he subtly hands his power away. His attention becomes reactive. He adjusts based on her moods, approval, and availability. Even if he speaks confidently, his body betrays him. Women are extraordinarily sensitive to this gap between words and inner certainty. They are drawn to men whose calm does not depend on being validated. Such men create a sense of emotional safety that allows her to relax and expand into her femininity. Many men talk about being the prize, but this idea collapses the moment a woman pulls back. If he panics, overtexts, explains himself, or increases effort, she immediately senses that his confidence was conditional. This is where respect erodes. She realizes that when the sea becomes rough, he is not a captain, but a passenger clinging to reassurance. True leadership shows itself not in good weather, but in emotional storms. Women rarely disconnect suddenly. What feels abrupt to men is usually the final stage of a slow erosion. Each ignored boundary, each moment of chasing, each display of fear of loss chips away at attraction. She notices inconsistencies between words and actions. She feels when a man tolerates behavior that violates his own standards just to keep her. Over time, her interest drains quietly until there's nothing left to sustain it. There are signs most men miss. Her tone changes before her words do. Messages lose warmth and playfulness. Responses come later and say less. She stops asking questions or sharing details of her life. Teasing disappears. These are not signals to try harder. Trying harder is emotional quicksand. The more you struggle, the faster you sink. Extra messages, surprise gifts, and constant availability only confirm her doubts. The correct response is counterintuitive. You slow down. You give space without resentment. You stay grounded and return focus to your own life, work, and purpose. Calmness communicates more strength than any explanation ever could. When a man remains centered regardless of her fluctuations, he becomes emotionally solid again in her perception. In the next part, we will uncover what women actually want beneath the surface and why boundaries, not compliments, are the true foundation of lasting attraction. What women truly want in a man is often misunderstood because it is rarely spoken about directly. Many men chase perfection, believing that being flawless, agreeable, and endlessly attentive will secure love. In reality, perfection is dull and unstable. What women seek is not a man who never makes mistakes, but a man who does not fall apart when complications arise. Emotional stability is far more attractive than polished behavior. A man who can stay present through tension, disagreement, or uncertainty signals something deeply reassuring at a biological level. Stability does not mean emotional numbness or coldness. It means the ability to experience emotion without being controlled by it. A woman feels safe with a man who can listen without shutting down, speak without exploding, and make decisions without excessive hesitation. Direction matters even when life is still forming. A man does not need to have everything figured out, but he must be moving somewhere with intention. Drift repels, direction attracts. One of the most counterintuitive truths men discover is that women respect boundaries more than compliments. Compliments are easy. Boundaries require self-respect. When a man can say no calmly, without anger or justification, he communicates value more clearly than any praise ever could. Boundaries show that he is not bending himself to be liked. They show that he has standards that exist independently of her approval. This paradox is powerful. The less he tries to impress, the more attractive he becomes. By setting boundaries, a man creates gravity. Instead of chasing, he allows others to move toward him. A woman does not want to be the center of a man's universe. That role feels heavy and suffocating. She wants to feel invited into a world that already exists, shaped by purpose, discipline, and self-respect. When a man chooses himself first, not out of arrogance but out of clarity, she feels chosen rather than begged for. The highest form of power and attraction is the ability to walk away, not as a tactic, not as manipulation, but as an act of self-respect. When a man can step away from disrespect, chaos, or emotional drain without resentment, he demonstrates inner authority. This is the quality that creates the strange mix women feel when deeply attracted safety combined with danger. Peace mixed with excitement, familiarity blended with awe. It is not loud or dramatic, it is quiet and undeniable. Such a man becomes a reference point in her mind. Future connections are measured against him, not because he tried harder than others, but because he remained himself when others would have collapsed or compromised. His presence leaves a mark not through intensity, but through consistency. In the next part, we will go deeper into the dynamics behind this attraction, exploring polarity, emotional roles, and why losing firmness turns connection into chaos rather than intimacy. At the core of attraction lies a dynamic that most men were never taught to recognize, let alone embody. This dynamic is polarity. Attraction thrives on complementary forces, not sameness. A useful metaphor is the shore and the ocean. The ocean is movement, emotion, depth, and unpredictability. The shore is structure, stillness, and direction. The ocean needs the shore not to control it, but to contain it. Without a firm shoreline, waves become chaos. Without waves, the shore's lifeless. When this balance exists, both sides feel alive and safe at the same time. Many men believe that being emotionally available means absorbing everything a woman feels. They listen endlessly, adapt constantly, and dissolve their own frame in an attempt to be understanding. What they do not realize is that without firmness, emotional availability turns into emotional collapse. Boundaries are not walls meant to keep her out, but structures that make intimacy possible. A house without walls is not inviting. It is exposed and unsafe. When a man has no internal structure, a woman cannot relax inside his presence. This is why many of a woman's behaviors feel like challenges. Changing plans last minute, becoming quiet, expressing dissatisfaction without clear solutions, or pulling back emotionally are not conscious strategies. They are unconscious questions. Can you stay calm here? Can you remain yourself when I am unsettled? Can you lead without force and stand without pleading? When a man explodes in anger or collapses into begging, the answer becomes clear, and attraction fades when he responds with calm indifference, grounded humor, or steady silence. The test passes without drama. There is no true equality in attraction dynamics. there is complementarity. Two people both operating from chaos create instability and conflict. A woman does not want a mirror of her emotional fluctuations. She wants a counterbalance. Order does not mean domination. It means clarity, decisiveness, and emotional regulation. When a man brings structure, she is free to feel. When he brings uncertainty, she must brace herself. And desire disappears under that strain. One of the fastest ways men lose women is by making them the center of their universe. Their mood rises and falls with her attention. Their plans revolve around her availability. Their sense of purpose becomes conditional on her presence. What begins as devotion slowly turns into pressure. She feels responsible for his happiness, and attraction transforms into resentment. No one wants to carry another adult's emotional stability. A woman wants to walk beside a man on a path that already exists. She wants to add to his journey, not become the destination. When a man has no direction beyond her, she feels both bored and afraid. Bored because there is nothing to join. Afraid because she senses that if she leaves, he will collapse. That fear quietly kills desire. In the next part, we will bring everything together into a clear path of transformation, showing how a man can shed old conditioning, reclaim his center, and become someone who commands respect without chasing approval. Transformation does not require becoming someone else. It requires removing what was never truly you. Most men are not weak by nature. They are constrained by layers of fear, apology, and conditioning that taught them to prioritize being liked over being respected. The path forward begins when a man stops editing himself to fit expectations and starts identifying who he is, what he stands for, and what he will no longer tolerate. This is not arrogance, it is self-definition. And women sense the difference immediately between a man who is rooted and a man who is merely visiting his own life. The most powerful shift happens when a man becomes unapologetic about his standards, not loud, not aggressive, not defensive, but clear. This is me. This is how I move. This is what I expect. This is what I will walk away from. When a man embodies this internally, he no longer needs to announce it. His presence communicates it. Women instinctively test these internal fences, not to break them, but to see if they exist. Strong boundaries do not repel the right woman. They trigger trust, curiosity, and desire to follow. This journey requires letting go of the nice guy survival strategy, buying love with obedience. Availability and self-sacrifice feels safe in the short term, but it guarantees quiet rejection in the long run. Real connection demands the courage to risk disapproval. Authenticity always carries the possibility of rejection, but it also carries freedom. A man who can be rejected without collapsing becomes magnetic. He is no longer negotiating his worth. He is expressing it. The reward for this transformation is not control over women. It is sovereignty over yourself. You stop guessing, chasing and decoding mixed signals. You stop outsourcing your emotional stability to someone else's attention. Instead, you become a force of nature, calm, directional, self-respecting. From that place, attraction is no longer something you pursue. It is something that responds to you. Women who encounter a man like this may not always stay, but they always remember. He becomes a reference point, a standard, someone who dared to choose respect over likability, truth over comfort, and presence over performance. This is the kind of man who builds genuine desire, not through tactics, but through being unshakable in who he is. If you are ready to step away from comforting illusions and face the truth that actually changes outcomes, then you are in the right place. This channel exists to dismantle false narratives, break attraction down to its core, and rebuild it under your own rules. Here, experiences are not excuses. They are raw material for strength. Knowledge becomes armor. Clarity becomes leverage, and self-respect becomes the foundation of everything. Welcome to Sicaria. This is where confusion ends and direction begins. No one else is coming to do this work for you. The next step is yours. See you in the next video.